We have some veterans and we have some brand new people joining us. I'd like to just go real quick, and we can introduce ourselves. We're missing about probably half the group, but that's okay. You'll meet them there. Let me introduce myself. My name is Shushan. I am in my brand new office in our brand new dive shop here in Lynchburg, Virginia. We open in about 3 weeks. Yeah, it's very exciting.
Wow.
So this is my first meeting in our new shop. I've been basically working out of my basement for the past 12 years. So welcome. I'm the manager of this shop of Fluvanna Dive Center Lynchburg branch, and we welcome you to our North Carolina Beaufort Diving. I am going to turn it over to our lovely and highly experienced trip leader, Mary Lou, to introduce
Thank
herself and tell
you.
us a little bit about herself.
Thank you. Well, with regards to diving in general, I've been diving since 1981, and when I first made a trip to North Carolina, it was in 1989, and I was hooked. And I was coming from Florida where we dove regularly, but there was just something different and special about it. And then I ended up moving to Virginia in 1991, and where I lived there near Danville. It was about a 3 hour drive to North Carolina, three and a half. And so I got to go regularly, and I was teaching scuba there in Danville. I had already started teaching in 1987. And so I would take advanced divers, a lot of specialty dive classes, students out to these wrecks. And um, it was a just a regular part of our dive training, because not only do you see really cool stuff, you really get to experience so many um, different conditions and really build your skills. So people say if you can dive North Carolina, you can dive anywhere. Okay, so not only will you be um, treated to a lot of amazing critters and history, but this will be uh, a great adventure. It's not easy peasy Caribbean diving. It's not incredibly hard, but by having some preparation and some idea in mind, I think, which is the goal of this conversation, I think everybody will find it great fun. And we keep it safe, and we can't minimize the seas, but we can make decisions that make the impact of the seas or any other weather conditions, less impactful. So, yeah, so I've been hooked on this diving here for over 30 years, and I hope to keep diving there for a couple more decades. And I'm glad you're
Very,
joining me. This is my passion, sharing this beautiful place and my love of diving with all of you.
it truly is, and we are very lucky to have Mary Lou with us. The passion shows in every single trip she does. You can tell there's love, there's true love in it. So, Carolyn, just real quick, tell us your name and why you're coming with us to North Carolina.
Hi, I'm Carolyn, and I'm coming. This is probably my fifth time, maybe, and it's because of what you get to see, um, and even when you don't get to see it, it's still exciting. I mean, the wrecks are cool. The sharks, if they're there, are amazing, and if they're not there and the visibility is terrible, oh well, you can collect shark's teeth. So,
Mhm.
and it's a good 2.5, 3 hour ride. And I find that even though I have to wear a scopolamine patch, it's really a very convivial experience too. So I like that part of it also.
Wonderful. Well, we're glad you're joining us. All right, Tim, let us hear it.
Hear what? Okay, my name's Tim. I've been diving for, I guess, 3.5 years, something like that, 3.5, 4 years now. And Mary Lou has taken me to a lot of cool places. I've been to New York, North Carolina, and to New York tomorrow. To North Carolina several times, and I've learned a lot down there. I've learned what not to do sometimes, but the thing I dig the most is the sharks are just just so cool. It's just so cool. So yeah, I like it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. And Mr. Larry Knorr.
Yeah, so Larry Knorr out of Richmond, Virginia, diving since '86, double digits to off of North Carolina. Don't know what that first number is, but it's the Tigers. And, you know, the only time I've seen people not have a good time there is when they didn't preload with Dramamine or something, and you got some tossy seas.
Yeah.
So I think as long as you do that, you know, you're good.
Yep, for sure. All right, Mr. Glenn, tell us who you are, why you're coming all the way across the United States.
No, okay. I'm Glenn Grant. I live in Port Townsend, Washington. I try to get out a couple times a year to other places than where I live to go diving, and was talking with Mary Lou a couple of years ago, and she showed me some videos, and I'm like, that's pretty cool. I want to do that. So she's got me beat by a couple of years. I started diving in 1985. So
Wow.
and where I live, there's some really good diving here in Puget Sound. So I try to get out at least once a week.
One of these
Yep.
days, I'm going to get up there, Glenn.
Go straight to British Columbia. Do not, I mean, they're not to make little of Puget Sound. There's some really great diving here, especially like right down the street. But if you want the best cold water diving in the world, Vancouver Island, man.
Okay.
Further north you go, the better it gets.
Mhm.
That's
Well, I'm
great.
so glad that even after a couple of years of, us talking a couple of years ago, that you've had this on your radar. People come from all over the world to dive on these wrecks. It's world-class diving that's in our backyard here. So, yeah, I'm, again, another reason to be excited about it because we get access to it. Unlike you, Glenn, that have to travel halfway across or all the way across
I
the
am
country.
blessed with some wonderful diving right outside my back door. So
Yeah, so
We're
I'm not
lucky.
complaining.
we're happy to have you on our side of the continent here. So, all right. Let's see. Anything else then, Shush, before we get started?
Go
Okay.
right ahead.
Well, I am going to share my screen. All right. And it's a small group. Please just stop me if you have any questions. If you'd like to just put something in the chat because you don't want to speak up at the moment, Shush can monitor that. If that's all right, Shushan?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. So here we go. So, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So, fabulous North Carolina wreck diving. And instead of showing a wreck, I showed the sharks because this is one of the most unique places where you may get to see giant shivers of these sand tigers. And this picture was taken right on top of my favorite wreck. All right. So the Graveyard of the Atlantic. It's I'll share a little bit more about why it's called that, but today what I'd like to talk about is where we'll be diving, some of the wrecks, some of what we will see, and then logistics about it, joining this adventure. All right, so the Outer Banks of North Carolina, or the Graveyard of the Atlantic, is about a 300-mile stretch of coastline that is in between two capes. So we have Cape Hatteras and Cape Fear that are the northern and southern boundaries of what is considered the Graveyard of the Atlantic. And along here, they say there's over 5,000 ships that have been lost out in these waters, which is a pretty staggering number. We will be diving off of Cape Lookout, right in between. And this is kind of significant because of the way the currents flow, etc. So Beaufort is right at that point. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but there's this little point here is where Beaufort, North Carolina is. And then this is Cape Lookout, which the cape itself, or the moving sandbar, extends out about 20 miles. So it's again, that's why we have so many wrecks here, because we've got some interesting topography along with current action going on. So that Cape, Cape Hatteras, being the northern boundary, also has some extension of like a giant sandbar out into the Atlantic. And we have the Labrador Current coming down, the Gulf Stream coming up. This is cold water coming from the north and very warm water coming from the south. And because of the topography of the Cape, the warm water tends to kind of circle around in this area, and the northern waters are kind of held back. So people often say, how cold is it? Is this like dry suit diving? Well, if you were north of Cape Hatteras, even at this time of the year, it's in the low 60s, and most of the year it's in 50s and low 40s or mid 40s. So where we will be diving is much, much warmer. So we've got a lot of this topography here, and the currents have resulted in many, many wrecks, and some are due to weather and many are due to wars. So this is another very interesting bit of history here. We've got wrecks from the Civil War, World War I, and World War II. So we may get to dive on both World War I and World War II wrecks on over the weekend. So this is a representation of showing many of the wrecks that have been named and their locations. And again, we'll be concentrating on this little cluster of wrecks right here off of Cape Lookout. And what this group of wrecks is further subdivided into is something, these are kind of categories that the captains have used, so I adopted them. We have the inshore wrecks, which are in a little cluster. The three that I've outlined here are the three that we would normally go to if we dive inshore. And there is one that is an artificial wreck that is called the Indra. It's the most dived wreck in this region. And for those purists that are true wreck divers, they care about the distinction that this is an artificial reef versus an actual wreck. The Psiloid and the Ario are both World War II casualties. The Psiloid actually was not torpedoed or sunk due to an act of war per se, but it collided with the wreckage of the Ario here, which then created a casualty. All right. The offshore south wrecks are one of it's the cluster that has the U-352 U-boat, the Schurz, which is a World War I wreck, the Hutton, which is we've had some musical wreck names here, so you will see that the W.E. Hutton here is also over here inshore. So for a very long time, the Ario was misidentified as the Hutton. Now we know that the true Hutton is offshore, but a lot of the locals still call it the Papoose. And then we have the Spar and the Aeolus. These are two artificial reefs, and the Aeolus is the most dived artificial reef out here in this cluster of wrecks, and I'll show you why. It's often, though, the second dive when we come out this way, because these others, the Papoose, the U-boat, and the Schurz, are a little bit deeper. So we'll do one of these first and then do a second dive on the Aeolus as a common combo. All right, and then the next region is offshore east. So we go around the Cape here and we head east. And the Carib Sea and the Atlas are the two wrecks out there. And the Carib Sea is my absolute favorite. This area here tends to get more swirling of the currents, which is potentially why it's so rich there. And the sharks really, really enjoy the Carib Sea. There's more shark life here in this region than all of these wrecks. Okay, so that's where we will be going. It's very hard to determine which wrecks we'll get to before we're actually on board, but I do like to find out what people are interested in seeing so that we can aim for those should the weather be permitting. All right, let's talk for a few minutes about the inshore wrecks. So those three that I talked about earlier, they're in about 60 feet of water. So you get some really good bottom time there. The Viz inshore isn't often as good as offshore, but I have been there many times and seen it over 100 foot. And when that happens, I will sometimes encourage people to stay inshore for a dive or do an offshore and then go inshore, because these are actually, and the Indra is actually a very beautiful wreck or artificial reef. And when you can see the whole thing, it's quite spectacular. The water temperature is a little cooler inshore than offshore because we get more of the Gulf Stream water bathing these wrecks offshore. So the inshore wrecks can be a few degrees cooler. It is a much closer boat ride coming right out of Beaufort here. So it's only an hour, and that makes these very accessible. And sometimes dive operators will do a morning charter offshore and then come back in, load back up, and come out and do another dive, maybe two, inshore in the summer when the day length is at its longest. So like August that happens often. In fact, they did that last trip. They did some second charters after us. So we find a lot of fossils here in this area. There's a lot of shark's teeth and a lot of great bottom dwelling critters to look for. So the eels, the octopus, once in a while we'll see sand tigers there. And usually sandbar sharks will cruise by. In fact, on the Indra lately, there's been a pair of them that have been quite visible, which people have really enjoyed. So these are some pictures from the Indra. You can see that it's upright, it's quite large, there's swim throughs, it's quite beautiful. And here's a day when we had top to bottom visibility and you could see the dive boat and really enjoy seeing almost the whole wreck. So really good day. And like I said, I'll encourage that when to do that now and then. And here's some shark's teeth. So these have all been found in this region. And so if like Carolyn had said, sometimes if the Viz isn't so great, we look for shark's teeth, and we find a lot of fresh ones as well as these old Meg teeth. All right, so offshore south, here we get a little deeper. Max depth to the sand on these wrecks that are in this group of 5 is 120. But we normally get to stay between 90 to 110 on the superstructure. The visibility is usually better, and it's much more common to have 70, 80, 90 foot viz on at least once or twice over the weekend. So the water temperature is a little warmer out here. It's about twice the boat ride though. And like Carolyn said, I really enjoy the boat ride. Most of the time, it's just a great opportunity to sit back and relax. We see a lot more bait balls out here, lots more sand tigers, sometimes really large rays, even manta rays. And so this is where when we come out here, we will normally do a rec combo. It's unusual for us to do 2 dives in the exact same place out here because we have a nice cluster to give us some variety for the day. So during the surface interval, we usually will move. All right, so this is the Aeolus. That is the most dived wreck or artificial reef out in this area. Great swim throughs, great sharks. The sharks love swimming through this wreck, which makes it really, really fun. Great lighting. I just love swimming through this and seeing the light filter through all of the various openings and the companion ways where people used to walk that we can now swim. This wreck even has facilities on board. So lots of fun there. All right. These are some other wrecks in the area. So we've got the U-boat. This is actually Shoshone. Shoshone, do you remember me taking that of you years ago?
Do.
Yeah. And this is the Atlas down here at the bottom. Very colorful. Lots of just gorgeous gorgonians and superstructure. So, okay. All right. So let's get into some logistics. How do we do this trip? So we are really working with 3 entities here. We have Fluvanna Dive Center coordinating the trip. Then we have Discovery Diving, which is the dive shop in Beaufort that is right on the water, and they own the marina that our dive boat is and our dive boat is docked there, but the dive boat isn't owned by Discovery. That is Outrageous Diving Inc. So we, like I said, 3 entities that we all work together to coordinate these trips. All right. So to prepare, what we need to do before we head down there, first and foremost, is get all of our paperwork out of the way. So you've seen emails from Shoshone asking for your paperwork. And of course, with any dive trip, we have liability waivers. So there is a Fluvanna Dive Center waiver. Then Discovery has a waiver, and they'll have you sign one for either nitrox or air. And then there is a Discovery rental form. Most people rent their tanks and weights, and they have other rental equipment as well. Shoshone, I think if you haven't gotten everybody's forms, I was thinking by Friday would be good, but certainly we like to have them a couple weeks before departure.
For sure.
So anything you wanted to add there?
No. So I've sent out the FDC just individually, and I'm sure you're going to get into how you're going to send out the other ones.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So for your preparation, anyone who doesn't have an advanced certification, that is the minimum. There will be a couple people coming who are new advanced divers and finishing their advanced. Nitrox, if you're not nitrox certified, it's highly, highly recommended. I think everybody on the call here is, but because this is being recorded, I did want to stress that. With nitrox on these dives, you can get about an extra 10 minutes per dive bottom time. You take a weekend of diving with 6 dives, that's an hour of bottom time that you've paid a lot of money for. So for those listening, if you do not have nitrox, you'll get a lot of benefit out of having it. It will pay for itself with extending your underwater enjoyment on this weekend. All right, equipment. If you're renting, you can rent some from Fluvanna. I put that plug out there because the gear at Discovery is a little dated, and sometimes we've had some challenges with fit, especially when you are arriving the night before and you don't have any time to really tested out. So if you need equipment, I would encourage you to work with Fluvanna. But I can help you. I'm sorry?
Mary Lou, regarding the nitrox, are they typically pumping 32%,
30.
30%? Okay.
Right. The MOD on 30 is 121. So 32 is too rich for the depths
It's
that we're
111.
going. Even if you were to try to stay at the superstructure, it's just too risky. So they only pump 30.
Okay, just curious.
Yep. All right. So with regards to buoyancy, one of the things I do like to point out is that we are deep diving. And when you're 60 feet or less, being a little overweighted isn't terrible. But once you start getting deep or deeper and you're in the 100, 110, 115 foot range, being overweighted it's not very safe and it's very uncomfortable. So you'll conserve your air, you'll be more comfortable if you really dial in your buoyancy. So I would suggest that if you don't know exactly what your weighting should be for a 3 mil and salt water, that just do work. If you have an opportunity to jump in and tweak your weighting, that's great. Or look back in your logs book and really try to dial it in. Any questions or thoughts there? I do
will
try to
put
stress this.
Yeah, I'll put a quick plug that if you're one of Fluvanna's clients, our pool is available at any time. You just need to call us and make a reservation so that someone's there to let you in.
And this is something that I'm happy to help with. On the last trip there, I had multiple people that shed significant weight. One woman took 12 pounds off of her rig. That's how overweighted she was. And it was just a night and day difference with her air consumption and her comfort level. Okay. So, oops, let me back up. The other thing that was already mentioned, Larry, thank you for mentioning it, and it's so true. And Carolyn as well, with seasickness prevention, it's so critical. This is a 2-hour boat ride, and then you have the surface interval. Figuring out what might work for you and having multiple modalities is sometimes a good thing. And if you're not sure if you may or may not get sick, we recommend that you take some prevention, because once you're sick, there's not a lot that can be done. And I feel bad for anybody who is sick out there all day. This is supposed to be a fun vacation, and it's hard to see people suffer. So we have some things on board, glasses and there's a new electronic wrist device that we use. But I think the patches and work well for a lot of people. Tim uses them now, Carolyn uses them, and that's probably the most recommended. All right. And then the other thing we'll do before we head down there is I send out a very detailed email, and that will be coming in the next a day or two. And if I have to travel to New York, like Tim said, so a little unplanned thing there. So I'll try to get that out to you by Friday. So if you can then get the forms back, let's say by Monday. I put this presentation together a few days ago, and I didn't realize that I hadn't gotten my email to you yet. But in that email, you will have all kinds of information, addresses, phone numbers, the itinerary, and some other logistical info, just because it's nice to have it written and you can pull up your email at any time. All right. So then once we're there, we will arrive the day before diving, and I'll have all of your forms and waivers into Discovery, make sure that they have everything so your check-in can be super easy. We try to have everything organized ahead of time so it's a smooth check-in process. You'll go to Discovery Dive Shop, and that is where you'll also check in for the hotel. So they own the hotel that is behind the shop, which is so convenient. We can walk back and forth to the boat, etc. They will have your rental form. You'll just need to sign it once they pick out your rental gear and they write the numbers. So the tank numbers, etc. They'll write it on the form, and then you can just sign that. If you're renting tanks, you can analyze then, and your names will be on the tanks, and it'll be ready to be loaded on the boat in the morning. If you need to get weights or whatever else, you can do that then. If you don't arrive in time, the shop closes at various times. I will call them on Thursday and find out what time they're closing. So if they will close before you get there, then we'll just have to do all of this in the morning, but I will get your room key so that when you arrive, you'll be able to get into your room, and then we'll take care of finishing up the analyzing and the rental forms in the morning. Yeah, Glenn, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm probably getting ahead of you here, but regarding like tanks and weights, do they provide a belt along with the weights, or is just free weights that you load up on your own belt?
They don't provide a belt unless you ask them for one, but they do have them there. They use them all the time for their students, but most people have their integrated weight pouches, so they just get weights, but I have seen people rent
Okay,
belts
just
as
checking.
well. Yeah.
As far as tanks go, what does the selection look like? Are they diving aluminum 80s, or do they got steel 100s?
So you can have an aluminum 80, a steel 80, a steel 100, and 120s.
Okay, and den or yoke?
Either one.
Okay, cool. That's good.
Okay. Orientations and briefings, pretty important. We will do a trip orientation the night that everyone arrives. I like to do a meet and greet out at the hotel. We have this great balcony. So once everybody checks in, we usually get together for a little bit around 9 o'clock. If everybody arrives earlier, we'll do it a little bit earlier, give people a chance to get something to eat though. And then we'll see. So that's when we'll have a much better idea what the weather is looking like for the next day, and then we can talk about buddies and other things like that. I will go over with everyone entries, exit, what to do in an emergency. For example, if you lose your buddy or if you come off the wreck. These things don't happen often, but when they do, it's nice to have had some conversation about the procedures other than just listening to the very brief briefing that the captain gives. It's got all the points, but it often doesn't give an opportunity to answer questions and really think about it. So we will talk a little bit more about it that night. And it's also nice to know what our buddy teams will be at that point and who's going to be doing what. So that little orientation it's really helpful. So we'll aim for that, and that will be in my detailed email. Okay. Then I'll do some orientations on the boat. Here's a picture where I'm showing some folks the wrecks. So once we find out where we're going, I'll share with whoever maybe hasn't been to that wreck before. And if you'd like to listen in, we'll talk about the orientation of the wreck, some special places to look, what to look for, what might be unique about it. And as we get intel from other boats, if any other dive boats beat us to a site, we'll pass on that information about viz and current, etc. So we try to be as prepared as we can when we splash. All right, and again, seasickness prevention. Please start the night before. So usually at the orientation, I'll remind everybody, and if If somebody doesn't have a patch and would like to get one from me or a buddy, we would encourage that you start medicating the night before. Doesn't seem to be enough time to be as effective if people take whatever the morning of. All right. Equipment needed. There is some mandatory equipment. So you must have a computer and please know how to use it. The captain will say this, so I say this. And it is pretty shocking how many people do come on board that have a computer that they either haven't used in a while or they just got, and they now want help figuring out how to set it for their mix or even to read it. I trust that I know all of you in this group know how to do that. But again, because this is being recorded, we can't emphasize this enough, and no sharing. We will share snacks and everything else, but not computers. All right. A reel or a spool and a buoy required for every individual diver. A flashlight or some type of light, but I think you really want a flashlight because you could see so much color down there and in all the nooks and crannies, octopus, etc. So having a light is wonderful, in addition to being a safety device. Cutting tool. These wrecks do get a lot of fishing line snagged on them because they are accessible by lots of boats coming out of Beaufort and Moorhead as great fishing spots. Gloves, they're nice to have. I rarely dive with gloves because of my camera gear and I just like the dexterity, but if it's going to be really rough, I'll keep a pair because holding on to the line when it's really rough can wear on your hands, especially when your hands are really wet, you know. So gloves is a great thing to have. Highly recommended. A John line is good. We had some current last trip, and I've used mine where I'll just hook onto the anchor line and then hands-free. I could use my camera, etc., and do my safety stop without being in a crowd. So that's a little accessory that some people really like. Now, you got a lot of extra gadgets on here. You are wreck diving. So something else in addition to neutral buoyancy and really dialing that in is streamlining. You don't want to look like this guy. There are people that have hoses everywhere, that have bags hanging off, or they have, let's see, I've seen people come with little floaty animals that they tie on. Have you seen that? Where they've got like little, yeah. And so, okay, cute, but dangerous in a wreck where you could get caught. So just being aware that, there's lots of opportunities to get snagged. When you're doing your giant stride off the side, when you're trying to get up these ladders and in and around the wrecks themselves. So good clips are your friends, and having extra D-rings, etc. And happy to help if anybody has any interest in potentially reconfiguring their gear a little bit to make it easier for this type of diving. Larry, did you have some?
Yeah, so just one thing you mentioned about the clips, there are a lot of folks who maybe, and again, this is like an experienced crew, but if they're coming from other places, who are used to using what we call the suicide clips, the things that are just kind of like they're like a carabiner open, which around fishing line, that's not what you want. You want the bolt snap. So
double enders are great, and then the single end with it's a bolt snap with like a loop at the other end that you can use to like hook onto your flashlight, etc., so that you can easily clip and unclip them. Yep, thank you, Larry. That's very important. Okay. All right. So a typical dive day. We will meet at the dock at either 6 or 7, usually 7. But if they have an afternoon charter, we will meet at 6 so that there's time to turn the boat around and reload. The Outrageous 5 is a 64-foot twin diesel boat with an open deck and a covered deck, a nice cabin with a head, and there is usually 2 to 3 crew members with the captain, and one of the other crew is a captain. Like I said, boat ride 1.5 to 2 and sometimes, yeah, about 2 hours 15 minutes is the max to the wrecks that we just mentioned. And our surface intervals are usually an hour to an hour and a half, depending on the depth and if everyone's on nitrox. We'll usually get back around 4 p.m. And if just to make the weekend nice, we've got the whole boat. So when that happens, if they're not doing an afternoon charter, people can leave their gear on board, whatever gear you're comfortable with, which I take advantage of because carrying everything off and back on for 3 days is more work than we need to do if we can leave it on the boat. So I will explain more about that when we're on the boat, but I leave my wetsuit, my BC, I take my reg, but I don't, and my computer, but I leave the mast fin, snorkel, my gear bag. So makes it really convenient. And then they will hose it off when they wash the deck down and it'll be ready to go in the morning. A lot of people ask, let me talk about dinner. So once we get back, I will arrange dinners. And dinners can be a little challenging with a big group because Beaufort is in the summer season, restaurants don't take reservations for big groups. So I do have some tricks, and to do that, to get together and eat together, we do need to eat early, but I think a lot of people are okay with that because we're hungry by the time we get back. We want to eat, get rested. We need to analyze our tanks later. So we usually aim for eating between 5:45 and 6:15. Most of the restaurants don't open up till about 5:30 for dinner anyway, 5 to 5:30. All right, and then I'll mention tips. They're not required, but the crew works really, really hard. And so we encourage, just, as a reminder, that to consider that, and if you plan to tip, cash is best. And you can tip either day by day or at the end of the trip, they know who in the crew worked which days and they will figure it out. Okay, so North Carolina boat diving is a little different than you might see in other places. There is a very unique rig called the Carolina rig, and it is set up so that when divers enter the water, they have a great place to hang out, to get situated here, and at about 15 feet, and then can make their way down to the wreck. So when we arrive, actually, let me back up. You've already rigged your gear at the dock. So when we arrive, you've got everything you need. And they'll tell us about 20 minutes before we tie in, so people can start putting their wetsuits on and do their last minute preparations. The mate will splash with the grappling hook. It's not an anchor. They actually physically tie us to the wreck because this boat is too big to rely on just an anchor. So when the mate is doing that, we're getting ready. As soon as the mate comes back up and everything's tied in, we get a viz and current report. The captain will then give his little overview and the pool is open. At that point, we will be able to start entering the water, and buddy teams that are ready to go can get up and start heading to the port side. there is a little opening here, and we will do a giant stride off the side to right around the midships, and head straight down to this hang line. We recommend negative entry. So if you've not done a negative entry, basically what it is all of the air is out of your BC, your reg is in your mouth, and when you splash, feet together, so you're not trying to stop your momentum, so your feet are together, and as you enter the water, the gravity has will help you hopefully splash to where at least your head is under by a couple of feet. You turn forward and start kicking down to this line. You should not have to come up. If you have to come up and there's surface current, then you can grab this floating line and pull yourself back over. If you need to adjust weights or anything, people can help you here, and then you can come on down. You can swim to the port quarter here, grab the line and come on down. So once you're on this hang line, you can get everything adjusted, wait for your buddy, and then follow the line down to the anchor line. And they guarantee that if you follow the line to the bottom, there will be a wreck. Okay. If you do a free descent, there's no guarantees. Okay. It's so interesting how we can have no current at the surface, and then you can get 50 feet down and it could be quite strong, or vice versa. So you just never know. So use the line. That's my recommendation. And the captain will recommend that as well. And if you follow the line back up, there will be a dive boat there to get back on. Okay. If you don't, then that is an emergency situation that I will go into more detail about in our other briefings. Okay, any questions here? Yes.
Yeah, so there will be a special briefing on preparation for negative entry, right? Because that's one, unfortunately, in the Dan magazine, you see the fatalities, unfortunately. Yeah.
Right. And so where do most dive accidents occur, though?
Under the water, absolutely. But I have
No,
read them.
at the surface, actually.
Oh, at the surface?
At
I thought
the
heart
surface.
attacks underwater.
And so, when we're diving here, when we have 2 to 4 foot swells, or we have some surface current, you are much safer getting underwater to that line immediately. So yes, we will go through the entry, and I do that in great detail at the orientation that I give on the night we arrive.
Great.
Okay. And the captain will recommend a negative entry, but he won't go into as much detail. And I'd rather do that when we're all together there, so we can see who on the buddy teams might, not have done this, and we can make sure that we have everybody, everybody's questions answered. Yeah, Carolyn.
Yeah, Mary Lou, I just wanted to say that for some reason I need to always add 2 pounds to my whatever weight I need for this particular dive. I don't know if it's super salty or whatever. And so when you say negative entry, I'll have all my air out of my BCD. I'll have 2 extra pounds than I normally dive with, say in the Caribbean. And I still need to push.
You need to kick a little bit. Yeah.
It's never, even if there's swells or whatever. So if anybody's listening, it's not a scary thing. But I can never do a negative entry here.
Yeah. And when we say negative, we're not talking about you jump in and you just start sinking. If that happens, you are way, way, way overweighted. So the way Carolyn just described it is the same for me. When I make that entry, once my head is under and I turn to start kicking to the line, I still have to kick a little bit to the line. Okay. So, but when I'm on that hang line, I am very comfortable. So when you're weighted appropriately at that line, that's a good clue. Now, if you're having to add air to your BC and you're still on the line, you are way overweighted. Any This is an important topic, so thank you for mentioning it. But we've had more people struggling at the surface. When they come up, they forget, they do the common thing where they come up, they give the okay sign, and the next thing you know, they're way down here by the floating ball. Okay. I did want to mention one other thing, because I have gone through this, where I've had knee trouble or back trouble, and sometimes these ladders, these are fins on ladders. It's another great feature on this boat, and their ladders are locked down, so they're not going to be swinging back and forth and banging on the transom. They do their dips are in time with the rest of the boat, so you can really time this. Being fins on ladders, once you grab them, pull yourself in real tight. Okay, get your body squished up against it, and then wait until if there is some wave action, to where you can then put your feet on. And then once your feet are on, it's an easy thing to just do this. Okay, you don't have to pull your feet out and navigate the tips of your fins. And I do have some video. It's just really hard to show here and switch back and forth to a different. I'd have to unshare and then reshare. I couldn't get it fully embedded, so I will show this at our orientation at the hotel. Okay, and then here's a picture. You can see the diver is comfortably hanging out on the hang bar at the end of a dive. There's often a lot of critters to look at there. Barracuda, it's amazing. They find us within 3 minutes of the boat pulling up. I don't know how they do it, but they do. And so there's usually things to look at there. And so the safety stops are often quite fun. All right. What is happening here? Sorry, but my PowerPoint isn't moving. All right, let me move on past. Hold on a second, folks. Sorry. See if this will allow me to restart it, kind of. Okay, so surface intervals. Again, an hour to an hour and a half. These can be fun. We go up on the top deck, we share food. There's always going to be snacks, etc. People bring their own. You need to bring your own lunches. They provide cold water and a place to put your food. And then I bring lots of snacks, boat snacks. So the surface intervals are usually a good time. When the water is nice and calm, you can get in and snorkel around if you'd like. They'll leave the tagline out for us. So and that's a good time too to re-rig any gear, make any adjustments, and we're all there to help if that's the case. If you need to do anything, as you know, the dives go on. People like to learn from the dive before and make some changes. All right. I did say in the intro that I was going to show you some pictures of things that you'll see down there. So I did want to share some of the color and the superstructure. This is what fascinates me about these wrecks. There's so much growing on them that people just don't expect. So bring your light. You'll see these beautiful gorgonians and other corals, soft corals, and just lots and lots of diversity. You may be surprised to see tropicals, but we have the Gulf Stream bringing in the little critters from the southern Atlantic. So you'll see quite a few tropicals, very similar to what you see in the Caribbean. when the viz is not so great, or even when it is, there's people who just love looking at the small stuff. So take some time and really look. You'll see all kinds of tiny critters. And it's so interesting. We had one great high viz, or just 80-foot viz dive day on the Carib Sea, and everybody was in awe of all the sharks and had such a great time. We went back 2 days later, so it was the same dive weekend, and the viz had dropped from 80 foot to about 20. And I thought people might be disappointed, but I always talk up the little critters and things. And some people came back saying that was the best dive of the weekend. And they saw so many things they had not seen there on a couple days earlier, because they were focusing on all the big stuff. And also, they found a lot of shark's teeth. So here's some pictures of the sharks that we normally see. There's now a resident Goliath grouper that is seems to have made its home on the Carib Sea. It's been there all season. And because there's so many sharks, there's plenty of teeth. And so this guy here in the picture is William. He is the owner of the Outrageous 5, and he is a shark tooth finding fool. He can fill up this whole container in one dive, and I usually can't fill it over the weekend, mostly because I'm too distracted by other things. But still, even when I try, Carolyn knows, we've looked and we've had fun finding things, but we still don't fill it like William can. And they're shedding them all the time. This was a picture I took years ago, and I didn't notice it at the time until I zoomed in on the image later, that there's one that ready to, fall and be found by a diver. They lose thousands of teeth in their lifetime, and there's thousands of sharks. So there's no shortage of fresh white teeth for souvenirs. All right. The other thing we're going to see a lot of are schools of large fish. Or large schools of little fish. These are Atlantic spadefish. Tom Tate's here, jacks. Obviously, these are barracuda. Sometimes we will see large schools of barracuda, and they'll be hunting in a group after the bait balls. So lots to see. And then on the bottom, we've got lots of eels, little blennies. This is one of my favorites just because I think they're just a cool looking fish. A sheep's head. So many things to enjoy. All right. So again, bring your lights, bring your cameras. Lots of people bring their GoPros or other action cameras, still cameras. So there is a separate camera box with fresh water that you can keep your camera in on board. So they do try to cater to our photographers. All right. Oh, okay. A few more pictures. Sorry, I kind of shuffled the things around here. And all right. Oh, and here's one of my favorite critters. There was one day that I don't know what I got into, but I came up with 5 baby octopus stuck to me. And so sadly, a couple didn't make it back because they were, even though I tried to put them in a container, they didn't care for that. And then the 2 that did survive the surface interval, when I got them down to the bottom and I went to let them go, a sneaky fish was right there and grabbed them as soon as I let them out of the container, and I felt so bad. But anyhow, lots and lots and lots of octopus. And you can find them by looking for discarded seashells that they've eaten. And So we usually go octopus hunting on some of the dives. All right, let's see. And surface intervals. Lately, we've seen dolphins. In fact, last trip we got to, they were swimming with us and they came right up to us. It was amazing. Fun jellyfish of all types. These are little cannonball jellyfish. So, bring a snorkel, even though you may not dive with it. Most wreck divers do not dive with the snorkel attached, but for the surface interval, it could be great fun. All right. It's another one I thought I had taken out of the presentation, but this is a sandbar shark, and they're usually fast. So if you get a glimpse of those, they're quite fun. They're very stocky, and they don't usually hang around too long. All right. So that's all I had. The end. All right. Any other questions?
Thanks, Mary Lou.
My pleasure. I can't wait to dive with you all. And so you will get the email from me. I also begin watching the weather very closely, about 10 days out. Anything further than that is just a coin toss anyway. Even when the hurricane season starts, it's still somewhat unpredictable that distance out. So we'll watch it carefully. If anything does need to change due to weather, we will let you know. And to that end, when you see my email, if you are not on WhatsApp, please sign up, because that is how I will do group communication, especially with a large group. Then I can keep everybody up to date quickly and manage people adding and removing them from the group versus using a text group. Carolyn asked about water temperatures. So about 76 on the bottom last 2 weeks ago, and 80-ish, 82 at the surface. It's probably going to be slightly warmer this time. For me, I was extremely comfortable in a 3 mil. And I wear a little beanie only because it keeps the hair out of my face and it adds just a tiny bit of warmth. So if you tend to get cold easy, bring a layer. So if we had moved to inshore, for example, I would have put my little shark skin layer underneath my 3 mil. So I bring something else just in case that I need to add. But right now 3 mil is the wetsuit of choice. People have shark skins. Those are great too. They're equivalent to about a 3, usually 2 to 3. Okay. What else?
So Mary Lou, what's the head count?
So we have a full boat. We have 18 divers, including me. So the nice thing about having the whole boat is we get to pick where we want to go. And so we'll talk to the group. Now when we say we have the whole boat, Fluvanna Dive Center is splitting this with Tri-City Scuba, and they're friends of ours. And so we work together to fill the boat with people that we know. And so there'll be, I think they have 7 divers and we have 9, something like that. Okay. The boat is full at 18 as standard. Sometimes they'll squeeze in a few more, but that's pretty normal, Larry. It sounds like a lot, but 18 is comfortable, especially if it's all from our group. When it's a bunch of people we don't know, sometimes it's more challenging. What else?
Looking forward to it.
Me too. This is one of my, this is my favorite month. July and August are my favorites. Just because of the water temperature, and this is the time of year that all of the sharks have moved in. And so we'll see lots of them. So last month, a couple weeks ago, over the Carib Sea, we had a thermocline at about 50 feet, and the sharks like the warmer water. So we did about 20 minutes on the wreck and then came up and spent about 40 minutes hanging out with the sharks, and it was so fun. Yeah.
Well, if there are no more questions. In terms of roles here, I'm going to be fading out while Mary Lou is going to be fading in. I am going to be getting your paperwork for Fluvanna. If you haven't turned it in, I will be notifying you, as well as final payment, but most everybody has done that already. So I'll be also sending the recording of this meeting out probably tomorrow. It takes about 12 hours for it to get up, and I'll send that out. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me, or Mary Lou is probably the best bet right now. And then she's going to be reaching out to you and kind of taking over from here.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's keep our fingers crossed for good weather. I'm
Good
so glad
weather.
to,
Yeah. Safe travels for everyone. And like I said, so thank you, Shashan. Once I send my email out, you will have all my contact info. If you don't have it now, if does anybody not have my contact info right now? No.
Mary Lou, will your email include your WhatsApp address or name?
So for me, WhatsApp is also my cell number, so I will give you that. Yes. And then what I do is about a week before we leave for Beaufort, I will start our group. So that way I have it all set up and kind of just test it, make sure everybody's in it. And then as we start heading down there, I can update people on, like when does the shop close, or, what's going on weather-wise, what time is dinner, where, things like that. So it would be great to get that set up ahead of time. Okay, and if you're not on WhatsApp, it's okay. What I do when I set up the WhatsApp group, I will send it. You'll get a text from me saying, please join WhatsApp. So if you don't get it set up before I send you the invite, it's no big deal. All right. Anything else?
Okay, guys. Well, it was nice meeting those of you who I hadn't met before, putting a face to the email. I love that. That's one of my favorite things. Mary Lou, if you could just stay on for a little bit for me to clarify a couple things. We'll say goodbye to our friends, and we'll see you in a few weeks.
Okay, I'm so excited.
Bye, guys.
See you soon. Bye.
Stop the recording.